Men who listen to what women say fail. Men who watch what women do win. Every guy has heard the same comforting lie you'll never truly understand. Women. And because of that lie, most men spend their lives in the dark, walking on eggshells, and wondering why nothing they do ever works. Think about it. You give her attention because she says she wants more communication, and she pulls away. You treat her better because she says she values respect, and she loses interest. You prioritize her happiness because she swears that's what matters. And somehow, she looks at you with less desire than before. The harder you try, the faster the attraction dies, and you're left asking yourself the same question every man has asked at some point. What do women really want? Here's the truth. No one dares to say out loud, you don't have to be a woman to understand women. You don't need to crawl inside her feelings or guess what's going on in her head. In fact, focusing on her emotions is the fastest way to lose her respect, because emotions lie, words lie, but actions never lie. A woman's behavior is the only reliable map of her real desires. And once you learn to read it, you'll see patterns that most men will never notice. Patterns that explain every mixed signal, every contradiction, every situation where her words say one thing, but her choices scream another. That's when you stop being confused and start understanding female psychology on a level most men can't even imagine. Every man has been fed the same comforting lie. You'll never understand women because you're not one of them. It sounds harmless. It sounds reasonable. But that lie is poison. It keeps men weak, confused, and stuck. It convinces you that women are some mystical puzzle that can't be solved. So the best you can do is guess, bend, and hope. And that's exactly why most men keep losing. Think about your own life. You listen when she says she wants more communication. So you open up, share more, text more, and she pulls away. You believe her when she insists kindness is her top priority. So you treat her better, bend more, give more, and her interest fades. You put her happiness above your own, thinking it will make her love you more. And somehow, she looks at you with less desire than ever before. The harder you try to follow her words, the faster attraction dies. This doesn't happen once. It happens again and again, until the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Men do what women say, and they fail. Men ignore what women say, and watch what women do, and suddenly the results flip. That contradiction leaves most guys frustrated, resentful, or broken. They start asking themselves, what do women really want? Here's the answer. You don't need to feel her emotions. You don't need to crawl inside her moods. You don't need to decode the chaos of what she says. Emotions lie, words lie, but behavior never lies. Once you stop drowning in her feelings and start studying her actions, you'll see the code beneath every mixed signal, every contradiction, every "I don't know what I want." And the moment you see it, you can never unsee it. Not empathy, but evidence. Not her words, but her patterns. Not pleasing, but leading. That's the key. You've been told the secret to understanding women is empathy. Feel what she feels. Get inside her emotions. Mirror her moods. But that is the fastest way to lose yourself and her respect. Because emotions are unstable. Feelings shift by the hour. Stories bend to fit the moment. And if you anchor yourself to that storm, you drown with her. The truth is simple. The real way to understand women is not empathy. It's evidence. Hard, cold, objective observation. Behavior is the lab report that never lies. A doctor doesn't need to catch cancer to understand how it spreads. A meteorologist doesn't need to be struck by lightning to predict a storm. A surgeon doesn't need to crack open his own chest to master heart surgery. Knowledge doesn't come from feeling the experience. It comes from studying patterns. Female psychology works the exact same way. And here's the irony. Women themselves are often the least reliable source about what women want. Not because they're malicious, not because they're intentionally deceptive, but because they are trapped inside their own chaos. They feel the cravings, they ride the contradictions, but they cannot step outside themselves to see the code. The eye cannot see itself. The mind cannot fully observe its own process. So when you ask her directly, she gives you the polished answer. Kindness, respect, communication, security. It sounds moral, it sounds reasonable, it sounds right. But when you step back and study her behavior, the reality looks nothing like the checklist. And this is where most men collapse. They take the story at face value. They give her exactly what she claims to want. They believe her emotions instead of the evidence in front of them. And then they wonder why doing the right thing always backfires. Not empathy, but evidence. Not her words, but her choices. Not her moods, but her actions. That's the shift. And once you make it, the fog lifts. You stop being confused. You start seeing patterns. And you begin to understand women better than they understand themselves. So let's put this to the test. Ask a woman what she wants in a man, and the answers almost always sound the same. She'll tell you she values kindness. She'll say honesty is non-negotiable. She'll insist on stability, maturity, and great communication. On paper, it sounds flawless. It sounds safe. But when you watch what she actually chooses, the story flips upside down. The woman who swears she wants stability, she's glued to the man who brings chaos. The one who says kindness is her #1 priority. She gets bored of the nice guy who treats her well, but can't stop obsessing over the man who keeps her guessing. The one who insists communication is everything. She spends nights checking her phone for a 2-word reply from the guy who barely texts back. This isn't random. It isn't bad luck. It's the pattern. Her checklist is the conscious mind polished, socially acceptable, what she thinks she should want. But her choices are the unconscious mind, coded by evolution, wired to respond to dominance, scarcity, and challenge. And when the two clash, biology always wins. If you've lived it, you know the pain. You gave her more attention when she said she felt neglected, and she drifted further away. You bent over backward to treat her with more respect, and she lost interest. You prioritized her happiness over your own, and her desire evaporated. Every move felt right, but every move killed attraction. Here's the cold truth: what she says is theory. What she does is law. Not the checklist, but the choices. Not the words, but the rewards. Those are the only data points that matter. Lab test for 1, the availability cut for the next 7 days. Cut your texting by 30%. No instant replies. No chasing. Group your responses. Stick to your own schedule. Watch carefully. If her interest rises instead of falling, you've just seen the law in action. Not empathy, but evidence. Not what she says, but what she responds to. This is the trap most men never see. They take her words as a roadmap, and then they wonder why following the directions always leads off a cliff. She says she needs more communication, so he opens up, shares everything, pours out his heart. At first, it feels like progress, but soon, her attraction fades. She says she values respect, so he treats her better than ever, bends to her needs, and somehow she grows distant. She says she wants security, so he puts her on a pedestal, makes her the center of his world. And then, almost overnight, her desire dies. The harder he tries, the faster she disconnects. It feels unfair. It feels cruel. But it's biology. Women are wired to test men. These tests are not calculated or conscious. They're automatic. Her emotions push, pull, and shift. But underneath every storm, one question is being asked. Can this man hold his ground every time you bend to her words? You fail the test. You show her you can be moved. You prove you can be controlled. And nothing kills attraction faster than a man who reveals he has no spine. Here's the paradox. She doesn't want to dominate you. She wants to know she can't. She doesn't crave chaos, but she feels safest with a man who stays calm in the middle of it. She doesn't truly want everything she asks for. She wants a man strong enough to resist. Because that resistance is what signals strength. Attraction isn't built on submission. It's built on immovability. Once you see this, her behavior stops looking irrational. The pushback, the drama, the contradictions, they're all pressure tests. And if you collapse under them, respect dies. If you stand firm, respect deepens. That's the hidden protocol running behind every relationship. Fail the test, you lose her. Pass the test, and you earn a loyalty no checklist can explain. Every time you bend to her emotions, you pay a price. At first, it's invisible. She doesn't scream at you. She doesn't break up that night. In fact, she might even thank you. She might say, "I appreciate you listening," or "You're such a good man." But underneath, something shifts. Respect drains. Attraction weakens. And the man who thought he was saving the relationship has actually started killing it. This is why so many men feel punished for doing exactly what she asked for. They try to meet her needs, and it backfires. They believe kindness, availability, and endless support will win her heart. But instead, it suffocates desire. The brutal truth is this: the more she feels she can move you with her moods, the less she trusts your strength. And if she can't trust your strength, she can't respect you. Without respect, attraction dies. What looked like love curdles into boredom, irritation, or even contempt. Here's the paradox. She doesn't want a man she can bend. She wants to feel that she can't bend him. She doesn't need you to fix every storm. She needs you to stand tall through the storm. That's what builds trust. That's what creates desire. And here's the real cost of failing the test. You don't just lose attraction, you lose her respect. And once respect dies, it never comes back. That's the point of no return. Lab test number 2, the boundary script. The next time she pulls you into drama, don't argue, don't explain. Use this exact line: "I hear you. I've got X to finish. We'll talk at 9, then walk away." Don't chase, don't fold. If she pushes harder, that's the test. If you hold steady, watch what happens. The storm eventually breaks. And when it does, her energy shifts from resistance to respect. Not pleasing, but leading. Not submission, but strength. Fail this test, and the relationship erodes. Pass it, and attraction doesn't just stay alive, it grows stronger. If you think this only applies in romance, you're wrong. It's bigger than dating. It's a universal law. And once you see it, you'll notice it everywhere at work, in friendships, even inside your family. The rule never changes boundaries. Command respect. Accommodation destroys it. Look at the workplace. A manager lowers standards whenever a female employee gets emotional. He thinks he's being compassionate, maybe even progressive. But what happens? His authority dissolves. His team stops respecting him. Even the women he thought he was protecting begin to see him as weak. Now compare that to the manager who enforces the same standards for everyone. He doesn't flinch when pressure rises. He doesn't fold when complaints roll in. That's the man who earns long-term respect, even from those who resisted him in the moment. Friendships follow the same pattern. Think of the guy who cancels his plans every time a female friend guilt trips him. At first, she thanks him. But over time, she loses respect. What? Because his life revolves around her moods. Contrast that with the friend who says, "I'm still going tonight, but I'll see you later." He doesn't bend. He doesn't let guilt dictate his actions. And strangely enough, that's the friend women stick around for. Consistency creates trust. Even in families, the script is identical. A son who lets his mother dictate his life through guilt eventually loses her respect. A brother who sacrifices his priorities just to avoid his sister's disapproval ends up resented. But the man who stands firm, even if it causes short-term conflict, earns deeper trust in the long term. This is the soul check when you compromise your boundaries to keep the peace. You think you're helping, but you're actually eroding respect. And without respect, no relationship, romantic, professional, or familial, can survive. Strength under pressure isn't just attractive in dating. It's the foundation of every human dynamic that works. This is why so much dating advice sets men up to fail. From childhood, you've been fed the same lines. Just be yourself. Treat her like a princess. Communication is the key. On the surface, it sounds noble. It sounds safe. But if you've ever tested it, you already know the outcome. You did exactly what you were told, sent the good morning texts, poured out your feelings, gave her all your attention, and instead of winning her over, you got ignored, rejected, or pushed into the friend zone. Here's the brutal truth: women often give terrible advice about attraction, not because they're scheming, but because they don't even realize their conscious words and unconscious biology are at war. When a woman tells you she wants sensitivity, emotional availability, and endless support, she genuinely believes it. But when you give her those things, her attraction fades, because her words describe what she thinks she should want, while her behavior rewards something else entirely. And here's the cruel irony: the men who take her advice most seriously are the ones who fail the hardest. They send flowers. They text all day. They dedicate their lives to making her happy. And then they sit there, broken, when she says, "I just don't feel it anymore." It's not that she's lying. It's that her biology doesn't reward what her conscious mind told you. Once you see this, the fog clears. You stop asking women what they want. You stop taking their advice as gospel. Instead, you watch what they respond to. You treat their actions, not their words, as your only compass. And when you do, everything changes. You stop being the man who fails by doing the right thing. You become the man who finally understands the game her biology has been playing all along. The moment you stop chasing her words and start watching her actions, everything shifts. The confusion fades. The frustration dies. That endless question, "What am I doing wrong?" disappears, because you finally see the truth. You were never broken. You were simply playing the wrong game. The more you tried to manage her feelings, the weaker you became. But the moment you detach from her approval and hold your own boundaries, the balance flips back in your favor. This shift isn't just tactical, it's transformational. It changes your identity. A man who builds his life around a woman's moods is not a leader. He's a follower. He's orbiting her emotions instead of anchoring her in his strength. And women do not respect men who orbit them. They respect men who remain the center of their own world. At first, this new stance may trigger pushback. She might complain. She might call you distant or stubborn. And that's where most men fold. They mistake her resistance for failure. But her resistance is the test. And if you hold steady, her frustration transforms into fascination. Her complaints turn into curiosity. And her attraction grows deeper than it ever did when you were trying to please her. Here's the irony: women often feel happier when men stop trying so hard to make them happy. Because constant accommodation breeds contempt. But boundaries breed trust. When she realizes her emotions don't dictate your every move, she relaxes. She stops testing as much. She trusts you more. And in that trust, desire flourishes. This is liberation. You're no longer the man running in circles, chasing moods you can't control. You become the man who leads, who sets the frame, who commands respect without begging for it. And once you taste that freedom, you'll never go back. If you want undeniable proof that actions never lie, just look at the modern world. Social media alone is a live experiment exposing female behavior every single day. A woman might post quotes about kindness, maturity, and respect. She might write long captions about how she values stability and emotional connection. But scroll through her likes and comments, and the reality smashes the illusion. She's not chasing the men flooding her with praise. She's chasing the men who project confidence, mystery, even arrogance. That's where her energy goes. That's who gets her attention. Money tells the same story. Ask her what she values most, and she'll say responsibility, security, or family. But track her spending, and you'll see the truth. Thousands poured into beauty, fashion, and lifestyle. These aren't random splurges. They're signals, investments in attraction and status, unconscious strategies for competing with other women and maximizing mate value. She might say she doesn't care about those things, but her credit card statement says otherwise. Time reveals the same contradiction. A woman swears family is her top priority, but spends hours scrolling TikTok instead of being present with her kids. Another insists her career matters most, but she invests more emotional energy into relationship drama than her job. On the surface, it looks like inconsistency. In reality, it's biology overriding conscious intention. And in dating, the evidence is undeniable. The woman who lists emotional availability as her top requirement. She obsesses over men who give her none. The one who claims shared values matter most. She dates men who contradict her beliefs. The one who says she wants stability. She keeps getting hooked on men who bring chaos. Different cultures, different ages, same patterns. Because biology doesn't care about words. It only cares about survival value. Not what she says, what she chooses, not what she claims. What she rewards. That's the proof. And once you start studying it, the mystery disappears. Once you strip away the excuses and look at the patterns, one truth becomes clear. This isn't random. It's evolutionary. For thousands of generations, a woman's survival and the survival of her children depended on one thing: choosing the right man. Pick a weak mate, and it could mean hunger, danger, even death. That pressure hardwired instincts into her psychology. Instincts designed to detect dominance, resilience, and the ability to protect. And those instincts are still running today, even in a world of air conditioning and Uber Eats. This is why women are drawn to men who project independence, unpredictability, even a touch of danger. It's not that they love chaos for chaos's sake. It's that biology interprets unpredictability as strength. The man who's harder to pin down feels like higher value. He signals scarcity and risk tolerance, and her unconscious mind equates that with protection and survival. Meanwhile, the so-called good guy, who bends over backwards, always available, always predictable, he gets punished. On the surface, his devotion looks safe, but deep down, her instincts register it as weakness. She may appreciate his kindness, but kindness without strength doesn't spark desire. This is the secret behind the bad boy effect. It's not about leather jackets, tattoos, or motorcycles. It's about signals. The bad boy radiates independence. He resists control. He makes decisions without seeking approval. Those traits trigger ancient attraction systems coded for survival. And here's the painful irony. The good guy who tries to do everything right often fails harder than the bad boy who does everything wrong. Because biology doesn't reward devotion, it rewards strength. Understanding this doesn't mean you need to be toxic or cruel. It means you stop confusing her conscious words with her unconscious programming. Women don't choose to crave strength over kindness. They evolved to. And until men accept this, they'll keep losing to guys who seem careless, but unknowingly project the signals her biology can't resist. Attraction isn't random. It isn't irrational. It's predictable. The men who embody strength and scarcity win. The men who rely on words and devotion lose. These instincts don't stop at romance. They spill into every corner of life at work, in parenting, and even in female friendships. Once you learn to see the code, you realize the same biological script is running everywhere. Women may speak the language of fairness, loyalty, and cooperation. But when emotions rise and instincts take over, behavior tells a different story. Take the workplace. A woman might advocate for equality and meritocracy. But watch what actually happens. She may defer to male authority while competing aggressively with other women. Another may preach teamwork and solidarity, but quietly undermine a female colleague's success while supporting male advancement. Even the woman who insists competence matters more than appearance often invests more energy into presentation than skill. None of this makes her fake. It makes her human. It's biology. The drive for status and positioning leaking through professional behavior. Parenting reveals the same contradictions. A mother may swear education is her top priority, but when choices appear, she prioritizes social activities over academics. She may claim she values independence, but then rescue her kids from every consequence. She may preach fairness, but clearly favor one child over the others. These aren't conscious decisions. They're ancient survival strategies, investing resources where they feel the return will be strongest. Even female friendships carry the same imprint. Women talk about loyalty, support, and empowerment. But under the surface, competition never stops. Gossip, subtle sabotage, rivalry masked as concern. One friend preaches honesty while weaponizing secrets. Another insists on trust while maneuvering behind her friend's back. This isn't hypocrisy, it's intrasexual competition. The same evolutionary code that drives women to compete for resources and male attention while keeping up appearances of solidarity. Once you see this, the confusion vanishes. Women aren't broken or fake. They're following unconscious scripts written into human nature over thousands of years. You stop being frustrated by contradictions. You start seeing predictable patterns. And the moment you read those patterns, you hold an advantage most men never even realize exists. At the end of the day, it all comes down to one decision. You can keep believing the polished words, the emotional stories, the cultural scripts, and stay stuck. Or you can start reading the only language that never lies: behavior. Because words twist, feelings shift, but choices tell the truth every single time. A woman's actions reveal everything: who she spends her time with, who she gives her loyalty to, who she rewards with her body, her attention, her commitment. Those are the data points that matter. And once you stop drowning in her emotions and start analyzing her behavior, the fog clears. You stop being confused. You stop being manipulated. And you finally see the code behind female psychology. This shift isn't easy. It means letting go of comforting illusions about love. It means accepting that women themselves often don't understand their own desires. It means realizing that listening to words will always lead you into failure. But while the truth is uncomfortable, it's also liberating. Because once you detach from her moods and anchor yourself in your own frame, you stop playing defense. You start leading. Here's the payoff. The man who learns this doesn't just attract women. He earns their respect. He doesn't crumble when storms hit, because he knows storms are tests, not disasters. He doesn't bend to emotions, because he knows biology is playing the real game. And ironically, the more immune he becomes to her pull, the more magnetic he is to her. Respect deepens, desire grows, and the relationship finally works. So here's your choice: stay trapped in illusions, or master the truth. Keep chasing her words, or start watching her actions. Keep failing the tests, or learn to pass them with strength.